tankers, welcome back to my videos. I am Droodles Blitz, and today I'm going to be talking about a pretty, popular topic in World of Tanks Blitz right now, which is what is the current state of the game? Where does it fall into? And I'm going to share some of my thoughts and opinions on this video today. And Fugits Blitz made a great video pointing out some huge things that Wargaming does and all the reasons behind that, and I'll have a link to his video in the description down below because I really did like it. And that gave me some inspiration to shed a little light on my opinions and thoughts of the game too. And starting off, just like Fugits said in the beginning of his video, I am not sponsored by Wargaming. I'm not a part of their affiliate program. I don't have any press accounts. I would like to, but Wargaming, until you hit like 5,000 subscribers or something, won't really do anything. So right now, I'm pretty much all non-profit, and you guys know that because you saw my video on the Object 252U, where I pretty much said I don't like it that much and don't purchase it. So this video is coming straight out of my heart and talking about the opinions direct from the source. And the first thing that when you come to mind of Wargaming is it's a game. However, it's also a business. Wargaming, has to make money or they wouldn't be in the game store as of right now. And with that in mind, all the premiums and everything that you play the game, if you think about it, pretty much wants you to spend money. Get more experience with premium account. You can skip through lines with gold. You can buy premiums to make you do better. And, Wargaming has this all down to a system. And the thing that really, I think, started to cause the game to start in a little downward spiral of events is, I think it was update 5.5 or 5.4. I've talked about this update before, many times actually. And this was the update where Wargaming decided to trim down the lines of the lower tiers. And the reason they did that is because the game was a grind. And, people don't like to grind things out. When I used to play Grand Theft Auto when I was younger, when I played the game, I never wanted to keep doing missions and missions to earn my cars in the game and get better apartments. That's the same thing in World of Tanks Blitz. You don't want to have to keep grinding and grinding every line in the game, and it would be such a painful grind that, younger kids that play the game, 6 or 7-year-olds, and some of you might be watching, you don't enjoy grinding a line, which is understandable. However, Wargaming takes that to their advantage by, they trim down the lines, first of all, to make it so that people could grind the tanks a lot easier. They got rid of crew, which meant that it would be easier to play the tank right off the bat from tier 5 and below. They, made equipment, and they made all the guns fair. And what that caused was it caused just an influx and rush of players to speed right up past tier 5 up into the higher tiers, tier 7, 8, and 9, and 10. And when that happened, it caused, and it's still causing, more and more players to join the game, and they find it exciting, and they think they're doing really well because they're rushing up the tiers. However, a game is meant to be challenging. A game isn't meant to be paid to win and just rush right up, all the way up to tier 10. And you're probably going to be doing worse in tier 10 if you rush up in the current state of the game than before you would when you had to grind out the tanks. And if you think about it, it really does make sense, because when you're grinding the tanks, you have to know what you're doing to, progress quicker. It's your skills and abilities that would cause you to do better at getting the tanks. If you can skip through the lines and, get to a tier 5 within 100 battles, get to a tier 10 within, 500 battles, compared to where it would take you thousands of battles before that update to get a tier 10, what that's doing is it making you have little understanding of the tanks and the tiers behind it. And it really causes just worse and worse players to join the game every day. And one really big thing I've always had a little grudge of against Wargaming is the premium tanks and how they advertise them. Because, 3-4 years ago, when the game, came out and it was pretty popular and more players were joining it, Wargaming would release premiums just like they do nowadays. But first of all, they never release the premiums, constantly. Pretty much every other day, there's a premium brought back into the store that is ridiculously overpriced, costs 12,500 gold, which is $50 US. You know, if you work at Starbucks, that's literally 5 hours of labor just to buy a stupid little pixel tank that helps you do better and say, hey, look at my win rate. You know, the whole game is pretty much just saying that my statistics are good and that I can win a game. You know, if you think about it, the World of Tanks Blitz really should be, you know, challenging. You want to challenge yourself in a game. You want to be able to get to the climax of the game where you can do better and better because you've earned your skills as a player, not because, you know, Droodles Blitz can make a video on an overpowered tank and $50 later you can do just as good as any Unicum because you spent $50 and they didn't, and now you have the same ability to kill them because they can't penetrate you and you can penetrate them. And that really makes sense when you think of like a tank of the Tiger 2. Now, if you don't know, the Tiger 2 is being buffed, I'm pretty sure next update, and the reason of that being is because the Tiger 2 is pretty much just an awful tank right now in the current state of the game. And you may think, well, how is it so bad? It's got, you know, decent armor, pretty good speed and mobility, it's got an excellent gun. Well, the reason I think it, you know, it's sitting less than a 50% win rate average for the past 90 days. And the reason of that being is just because of premiums and the progression of the game on how Wargaming advertised. If you think about the IS-6, it has two guns on it. It has a 220mm penetration gun, which everybody would run if they had a brain cell. And then there is the bad gun with 175mm of penetration, and the APCR on that gun has the same pen of the good gun on the IS-6. Not only does it have better shell velocity, it has heat shells, which can pretty much penetrate tier 10s, and you know, it has everything else stuck in goodies. Now, when the IS-6 first came out, it only had the 175mm penetration gun, which meant that when you went up against tanks like the Tiger 2, you couldn't penetrate it frontally because you were sitting at around 220 thick. But nowadays, you can literally run an IS-5, drive straight up to it. I was shooting at that Tiger 2 with AP shells when I penned him through the hull. That just shows you how weak the Tiger 2's armor is now. So Wargaming has caused the Tiger 2 to just do worse and worse and worse in battles. And they have caused most of the original premiums to do worse, like the T-32. It is pretty much just an outdated tank now. And if you think about tier 10s in the game, you know, the T110E5, I really don't think it's that good of a tank at all. And I think Wargaming will soon buff it because I bet you very little people want to get that tank because the tank is becoming outdated. The armor isn't that great for the new tanks that have become, you know, popular in the game. And that really does make sense. And staying on the topic of premium tanks, I have a really intriguing and important point to make about them. And, you know, when you think about mastering a vehicle, and, you know, you look at my account, I'm sitting at, I think, 800 masteries out of my 40,000 or whatever battles I have. I'm not even sure how many I have, but when you look at my masteries, you can see, you know, I have 800 and whatever. Now, if you look at the tanks I master the most, they're premiums. Premiums like the T-22 medium, like the T-95E6, which you saw me master 2 games ago. Premiums like the WZ-120 GFT, tanks like that. You don't see me master tier 10, you know, tech tree tanks, tier 9 tech tree tanks, tier 8 tech tree tanks. And the reason you don't see me master them is because there are players that are skilled running them and grinding down the lines and getting exceptional games out of them and non-exceptional games. When you see a tank like the Lorraine hit the store, now, I would tell you not to buy it if you're a new player, and the reason of that being is because the Lorraine is not an overpowered tank if you don't know how to run it. It took me 150 games just to do very good in it, which is hard for me to do in that tank if I'm not paying attention or being observant every second and trying to outsmart the enemy player. The WZ-120 I can literally be overpowered in just by doing an average match in it. I have a 25% mastery ratio in this tank, which means every 4 games I play, I'll pull out 1 mastery, maybe even 2. I literally played 1 game in this tank this morning. This was the game I pulled out. 4,000 damage and a mastery. That's ridiculous. I shouldn't be able to do that. However, if you look at the average player's stats on this tank, first of all, they're not really that impressive. The reason the tank sits at like a 59% average win rate on Blitz stars is because players like me even out the statistics. but I'm sitting at a 70% average win rate, which means that all 60%ers are going to be sitting at a 70%, 80% average win rate in this tank, which means that all 40%ers and all 30%ers are going to be sitting at a 50% win rate in this tank, which is not impressive at all. And what that's causing is it's meaning that there's so many players that are doing bad in this tank that it means that my good game is, extremely good enough to get me a mastery even when I'm barely even trying. And it's the same way for the T-22, and only the tanks that people care about and think are overpowered. A tank like the Lorraine would take me maybe 50, 60 battles just to pull out one mastery. It's very hard to master that tank. And that's the same way for most tech tree vehicles and tier 10s, like the IS-4. That is one of the hardest tanks to master in the game. It might take you 8,000, 7,000 damage to master it. I pull out a T-22 medium and it'll take me 3 games and 3,000 damage, 4,000 damage. And most of you guys can support this because most of you guys do own the tank and you are competent players and have mastered it multiple times. My T95E6 I think is sitting over 30 masteries, like that WZ120 there. I can tell you he's not a good player. I haven't even looked at his account. I can tell you he's not a good player. Bought the tank because he probably thought he was overpowered. He bought it, and you can see there, he literally pulled out. He didn't know my reload. He didn't know anything about me. He even bounced my tank when he was looking down at it because he hit me in the gun manlet, which is, a pretty much 10% chance to hit at, judging that you're looking at the entire flat plate of this tank and looking down on it, making that 120-degree angle even less. Which I'm trying to say is just that worse players are joining higher tiers because they're buying premiums. That is one of the issues. Pretty much every time I get a tier 10 premium in my game, I'm guessing that it's not a good player unless I know the clan. And that's a really disappointing thing to know. Look at this, 3,900 damage, 6 kills, which was pretty impressive, but the game wasn't that impressive at all. You saw I was aggressive. I literally shot at every single player I could, and I killed them all very quickly. Mastery. I should not have gotten a mastery for this game. I didn't do anything impressive. Nothing in this game was impressive, yet I can do a 6,000 damage game in a Lorraine 40T, a 6,000 damage game in, T95, and I won't pull out a mastery. And the reason of that being is more skilled players run tanks that are hard. No noob wants to buy a Lorraine 40T because it's a hard tank to run. And a player like me will have to, fight against other players that are more competent and learn how to play the tank because bad players just won't play tanks like that. And that's the sad truth. And it gets more sad when I get deeper into the topic, because before I was talking about masteries and, how I have more masteries on my premiums than I do on my non-premiums. So I decided, real quick before I recorded this audio clip on this replay, I decided to really quick go calculate all of my tier 10 statistics, and I added all of my, non-premium tech tree tier 10s, all the masteries I have on all 27 of them, and compare them to the 6 premium tanks I have. So in total I have 33 tier 10s, and only 6 of them are premiums, okay? Now, out of all 27 non-premium tier 10s I have, they equal 143 masteries. Now, real quick in the comments, I want you guys to make your guess, or actually, you know what, even better, I'll have a poll pop up right at the top right now. And you guys pick one of them before I tell you the number of how many masteries I have on my premium tier 10s. Take a guess, and whichever one of you guys picks the right answer, good on you. But now, here's the answer, 142. Which means that out of 6 tier 10s, which I have less battles in than, I probably only have about 5% of my battles in those tanks, the 183, just the 183 alone, has more battles than every single one of my tier 10 premiums added up. That is sad, judging that these premiums equal 142 masteries. The T22 medium was sitting at like 52 masteries. T95E6 was sitting at 40, and then when you go over a tank like the WZ113 tier 10 heavy tank, I have 1 mastery in it out of like 400 games. And the reason that is because people don't care about tanks like that, because they require skilled play. No new player that buys a Chieftain Mark 6 can do well in a WZ-113. If you got 10 random players out of a tier 10 match you play in premiums, and you put them in a WZ-113, the statistics of that tank would probably drop by 20% average, just alone, because of the players that run the tier 10 premiums. Most players that grind tanks don't buy the premiums, if you think about it, because they're grinding tanks. They don't want to spend money on the game. They don't want to pay for premium, which makes a whole ton of sense why, when you run premiums that are overpowered, more players that don't give a crap about grinding and just want to say, oh, look at me, I have an overpowered account, I can kill anybody in the game, I'm so good, you know, I can buy any tier 10 I want, I don't need to grind at all, and I'll play these tanks and have, you know, 500,000 battles in a Helsing, and that proves that I'm a good player because my win rate's above 60. It really doesn't prove anything, because it's just as simple to go into your statistics and see that you have 5,000 battles in a Helsing, and it pretty much says that your point of the game is useless. You have no reason to play this game other than you're causing, you know, stress on players that are trying to grind. You can see here the T-34-3 is one of the hardest tanks to run in the game. It took me 4.6 thousand damage to pull off a mastery. I did a 4,000 damage game. I'm not going to show you it, but I played it earlier today. I did a 4,000 damage game, and I did not pull out the mastery. If I was in the WZ, I definitely would have. 34-3, it takes a lot more experience as well. I didn't show it in the WZ-120. It took me 1,100 experience to get the mastery. It took me almost 1,400 in the 34-3 to get the mastery. That is a huge difference. It's just showing, though, how much harder it is to pull out a mastery on tanks that are much harder to play. You'd think that, you know, if worse players are overall spread out, that it would be even on, you know, the masteries you can get, but it's not. The point I'm trying to convey here is that the state of the game isn't that bad. You know, I've made old videos saying that wargaming, trimming the tech trees, made most players really just rush up the tiers and suck. However, I'm going to contradict that a little and contradict the opening of this video, because really what I'm saying is that premiums are the reason you're losing your matches. If you see you have a player in an Object 252U on your team, he doesn't have a clan, or he's just not impressive at all, you can pretty much guess that he is going to suck, not know where to push, or something along those lines. And that's the unfortunate thing. When I see players that aren't in premiums and they're grinding down the lines, you know, I don't care if they suck, because they're trying to play the game. They're trying to be challenged. They're trying to earn the tier 10. Players that don't care and just skip down the lines and purchase all the stuff with premium and, you know, buy all the premiums. If you see somebody in a Chieftain T95 tier 10, and, you know, they're not in a clan, well, that sucks for you, because it's just not going to be a good battle. And I'll get a little bit deeper into that later on. The more and more you think about it, the more you realize what wargaming is doing to the game that they have created. And I think they're pretty much just self-destructing all of the properties they once built and, you know, made. Because, again, you know, the Chieftain, or the 121B, I think was the first tier 10 premium to ever come into the game. Now, tier 9 had the KPZ, you know, that tank was also very new at the time. There weren't a lot of tier 9 premiums. And when you think about it, before the 121B came out, I never ever thought or even hoped that wargaming, in the slightest of my mind, ever thought that wargaming would bring a tier 10 premium into the game. And I didn't want them to. Because as soon as you bring tier 10 premiums into the game, you pretty much ruin the game, in my opinion, because it takes away the challenge component. It takes away the part of, you know, being an experienced player to not being an experienced player. And I like to buy tier 10 premiums just because I like to collect tanks in the game. But the issue is that wargaming pretty much is making kids gamble to be able to get these tanks and not even win the games. You see people with the Chieftain that cost them $1,000 maybe to get that tank, or the T22 medium. It cost me $500 US, and I'm not making this up. You could look at my bills. $500 US to get the T22 medium. And that is ridiculous. And that was in the Blitz Fair. It wasn't even in crates. I got the tank because I completed the Christmas tree. to get that tank in crates, it could cost you $1,000, it could cost you $10,000. You don't know how much money it costs. And what Wargaming is literally doing is they're almost illegally having kids, under the age of 18 actually gambling on their game to buy tanks in crates to hopefully get it, to make their game better, because they'd rather buy tanks to think that they're going to do better in the game than just grind down a line and learn how to play. And it's the same way with premium ammo. Before, premium ammo used to cost gold. You couldn't get it unless you paid gold, which meant that all free-to-play players had it was nice because they learned how to use ammo. They learned how to use shells and do better in the game other than just spamming APCR. Nowadays, you can run tanks. You can see this Black Prince here is just spamming premium ammo at me, which makes my armor pretty much useless, and it's kind of unfair if you think about it. And that's why the Tiger II is probably being buffed, and all these tanks are being buffed. The IS-6 used to have really good armor when it came out in the game. Doesn't anymore. You can pretty much penetrate it with any tier 8 in the game. Just load that premium round. You run an M6 Experimental, it's supposed to be this giant monster and behemoth, and I really do like it. But nowadays, people just run their Scorpion G, load an APCR shell, and pen you right through the front. They load heat on their RHMs, enough penetration to pretty much pen anything, and it kind of defeats the purpose of challenge and, enjoyment and thrill in the game. I barely ever run APCR shells. If you actually take a look at my loadouts, I only keep like 5 APCR shells at max. I like to keep more high explosive. On like an E4, I always have to have a max of 10 high explosive shells on any 150mm cannon, always, because I think high explosive is one of the most useful things in the game. Wargaming needs to make videos explaining how to use ammo, where they're better, and Wargaming Europe, I think for PC, has a great video on it. I'll also leave that in the description down below. Make sure you watch that, because that will really help you understand armor penetrating characteristics. I also have a video on that, but new players don't care because now they can just run, oh, I'm going to load APCR, I'm going to keep more. It's kind of sad to me, and I know most of you guys, some of you guys at least, will do this too, and I would suggest that you don't run more premium rounds than your standard ammunition. If you're at a point where you're loading more premium rounds than your standard ammunition, and you're watching this video right now and you're hearing me say this, I would really suggest that you take away all the premium ammo and put 10% of what you had. Maybe only keep 5, like on your Object 252U. Instead of knowing that you can just load APCR and penetrate everything, and keep more, 20 APCR shells and 10 AP, swap it. Put 10 APCR and 20 AP shells. It's just going to help you learn how to penetrate targets, and what that's going to do is it's going to mean you're going to pre-aim at targets, or when they're hidden behind a bush, you know where their lower plate is, you know where their weak spot is, you know how to penetrate them without having to load heat, and just hope for the best and say, well, I penned him because I loaded a heat shell. And now this topic right here I'm going to talk about is one of my bigger arguments against Wargaming and the company that, or not even the company, but the business that they are running right now in the game. Because when the Object 252U came out, they released a video with it, and I didn't watch the video, but I can tell you exactly how the video is. It follows a standard procedure. They're probably going to say, this tank has blah 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 characteristics. They're only going to talk about the good statistics and characteristics of the tank. They're going to say how it probably has the highest alpha for like the Russian tanks or whatever. And then they're going to pull out a Jagdpanzer and an E100 or something shooting heat at the upper plate and say, wow, look how amazing the upper plate is. It can bounce this many shells. And then they'll show a little, picture of the armor and blah blah blah. What they don't show you is how to play the tank. They don't tell you about the weaknesses. They don't tell you about side scraping. They don't tell you crap. And they do that for every tank they release. Ever since like the T-22 medium, they've been talking about that tank. Oh, it has the armor of an IS-7, but we're not going to show you how to run this tank. We're going to say it has overpowered armor, and we're going to say that, the Object 252U can bounce a heat shell from a Jagdpanzer, but we're not going to clarify that the lower plate is awful, and that if you're a noob or you're a new player who thinks that you're really getting, an awesome deal and you're going to win every game because of that armor, what ends up happening is that you're going to drive the tank, and you're going to realize that the lower plate sucks, and Wargaming didn't tell you that, and that you need to now learn how to do that and not just rush your vehicle up there. And instead of making videos endorsing tanks, how to, just buying them and saying, buy our stupid crates so that you can maybe get a good tank that you're not going to know how to run, what they need to do is they need to talk about things players don't know. First of all, as I said just before, they need to talk about the characteristics of the tank, the strengths, the weaknesses, if they're going to advertise it. You know, it would be like buying a product, or it would be like buying a book without able being to read. It would be completely useless if you bought a book and you couldn't read. And that's what Wargaming's sort of doing, is they're selling you the product, but they're not helping you know how to use it. They're just trying to sell you it. And I think what Wargaming needs to do, because not only will this help the matchmaker do better, this will help the community, it will help Wargaming grow as a, just a game. And I hope Wargaming that you are watching this video, or at least some, higher ups are. I doubt that you are, but you should be, because if you're listening to my opinion here and you're actually taking it into thought and consideration, if you stop making the videos you do on the, premiums and how good they are, what you should do is you should make tutorial videos. Nobody knows what shell normalization is. I bet you 80% of you guys watching this video right now have no clue what shell normalization is. And I have a video on it explaining that. I explain the 3 calibers rule and the, heat shells, AP shells, APCR, how all that works. And I'll definitely leave a link to in the description about that. But I talk about all these things and these terms in the game and, the RNG, how all that works. But yet, nobody knows about it and nobody cares because Wargaming won't talk about it. If Wargaming made a video, just a quick tutorial video, would take them, 5 minutes, maybe cost them $500 to make. Why can't they do that instead of spending time making a video on a tank where they know they're going to sell it no matter what because the YouTubers are going to say how good it is and how to run it and whether or not to buy it? You need to spend time Wargaming on, helping the community grow and get better at the game. Because if the community does better and gets better, so will the players, which will cause more players to join the game and want to play and want to learn because they know that the company is trying to help them do better in the game. A heat shell. And one of the things that really triggers me about, or one of the moves that really triggered me, and it took me a while to realize what the big scheme, and I think I'm not 100% sure, this isn't 100% correct, don't take me word for word on it, but the reason I just disregard update 5.5 or whenever they got rid of the lower tier tanks was because they said it was from seal clubbing and that they wanted to make the lower tiers a more fair and fun environment for players to learn and experience the tanks of the tiers down there and not deal with seal clubbers that are going to win every game. Now, first of all, they never nerfed the Kenyatta, which they should have. They should really remove it from the game and give the people the $3 back. It is literally just toxic, doesn't do anything for the community. Who cares if you even lose some of the players that own it? It really doesn't matter. The reason they won't get rid of it is because they know that those players are the players that will buy the overpowered tanks to do overpowered in the game, and that's why I'm pretty sure they won't remove it. But back onto the topic that I was just saying is update 5.5 I really don't think was pointed towards making the seal clubbers stop seal clubbing, because what I think they really wanted to do is they thought, okay, so we're going to make the community think that we want to help them by getting rid of the seal clubbers, which they did. However, also what they were thinking is this is a long-term benefit for us, because what's happening is those seal clubbers are now going to want to buy the overpowered tier 8s and the tier 10s that we're going to release. So in return, we're going to make a profit, because if you think about it, seal clubbing, how much money does it cost to buy a tier 2, tier 3 premium? How much money did it really cost, or it didn't even cost any money really to buy a low tier tank. It was free, and it would cost you 100,000 credits, and you could sit at a 90% win rate and just win every game. Now you can pretty much still do that, but it's not as fun and it's not like it was before. But what they did by nerfing those tanks and getting rid of the tanks that really seal club, like the T-82, what ended up happening is they probably thought that if they get rid of those tanks, those players are now going to jump up to the higher tier premiums that they're going to advertise, and they're going to be able to make money off of those players. Also, having those tier 3 players now playing tier 8, they're going to ruin that tier by having more players playing it, which is going, again, to cause more players to want to buy overpowered tanks to increase their win rate. Now you can see how that's sort of a pendulum that just keeps on going and going and going and helping Wargaming in the long run. So Really what I'm trying to say is update 5.5, in my opinion, now this is pretty much a conspiracy, it's not proven in any way, but it does make sense, and I hope you guys do understand what I was getting at there, is I really think that Wargaming did that really in the long run to help their business grow, and it wasn't just because they wanted to help us out. They never ever really want to help us out. I don't think there's ever been a time where Wargaming has been, awesome and nice to the community. They never have events to earn tier 10 collector tanks. Like World of Tanks PC, they have events, cool events where you can earn the object 257 or whatever it was. You can earn a tier 10 tank, which is awesome. And, why can't they do that on World Tanks Blitz? Why can't you earn, why couldn't you have won the Badger in an event? What I think Wargaming has been doing is, you may think, wow, these events are nice. They keep releasing more and more of them, bringing more people into the game. Now, the reason I think they keep making more and more events, when you think of like the 59 patent event and the Type 59 event, now those tanks aren't what you'd call overpowered. They're very good. I like them. I really love them, but they're not overpowered. And what they're doing is they're sacrificing a little bit of their revenue, by giving away that premium where you have to nonstop grind and grind and grind. But the secret is you have to win, or you have to do a lot of damage to be able to get that premium for free, or $10 or whatever. What Wargaming does is their genius on this is while that event's going on in the store, if you notice when the 59 patent came out, is they released the T22, they released like the T95E6, they released the T55A. They had all of these tier 9s and tier 10 premiums. They had all these tanks surfacing around the game and all these overpowered premiums. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, you can buy these tanks as well because now that we have, 100% more players than we did last month before this event, now that we've drawn all these new players into the game, we want them to buy our stuff, our tanks, our premium to do better, to be able to get this tank in the event and to be able to get future tanks in the events. We're going to release all of our overpowered tanks right now so that we make a huge profit in revenue. And it's like that at the Blitz Fair too. It's all this big scheme, sort of, if you think about it. And that's just the really reason why I don't like the current meta of the game. I think Wargaming is too driven by money, and they need to go back to the aspect of fun, because it's not that fun if you lose 5 games in a row, and people will stop playing the game because of that. But Wargaming doesn't care, and they need to care. That is the big picture. That's what I'm trying to get at. But instead of just continuing to rant on and on and on, I've already shared some ideas what Wargaming could do to fix the game. But now, because I've ranted so far and I've talked about my opinions on the game, I want to, talk about ways to fix it and at least ways to help you guys do better and win more battles. Because I always want you guys to learn something on one of my videos, even if you disagree with me, and I'm guessing, 50% of you will disagree with, half the things I say, or most of the things I say, but also the other 50% who don't disagree, or, the people that, I know every one of you are probably going to at least disagree on one thing I say, but I know also, you will also agree on some of the other things I say. So I'd really just want to get you guys on, a point of view that maybe will help everyone, help this game grow as a community. The first thing I already said is Wargaming needs to make tutorial videos. They need to show players how to do better in the game. Um, it's really just a simple thing they can do, 5-minute video. It really doesn't matter. They need to explain side scraping, how to run TDs, mediums, lights, etc., how camo rating works, how long, you have to wait until you get spotted. When I started playing this game, I didn't know what the stupid light bulb was that popped up on the middle of my screen. I'm like, what the heck does this light bulb mean? It took me probably 3,000 battles to figure out that when the light bulb popped up, a couple seconds later, I got shot. Most players don't know is that, and some of you might not know this, is that when you're spotted, you get the light bulb shown 3 seconds after you've already been spotted, which means you need to GTFO. Most players won't know that. New players that start the game have no clue what the light bulb means, and when they get spotted, they don't know that you have to wait 9 seconds to, get undetected again, and that's one thing that Wargaming needs to cover. That's the first thing. That's my first important thing, is they need to make tutorial videos. They need to help the people understand how to play tanks. Second of all, they need to stop releasing overpowered premiums with, ridiculous penetration. They need to stop selling crates, because crates are going to cause, more gambling and just more greed for the game in general. and they need to stop selling just more premiums because even a year ago, there was probably only, one premium every 4 or 5 days, and there's always a new premium like every Friday or whatever, or, a big premium that you're waiting for, which has always been the same thing. But now it's like they're releasing new premiums every day. This week we got the Lorraine, the AMX 1357, we've got the IS2. What else we got? We got the Object 252U. That's already 4 or 5 tanks. They've got the Revelarice. They've got all of these tanks that just keep popping in the store, and they've got so many. Why can't they just not release premiums for a couple of days and not have the games be filled with these premiums every 2 seconds? And when they release premiums like the WZ-120 or premiums like the T-22, they need to know to not release them again. When they release a tank like the WZ-120, they literally took it out of the store because there were so many people that bought it the first day. Wargaming thought that it was probably a bad idea. Like when the Keniyatsu came out, they removed it the first day after they sold it, just because so many players bought it and thought it was such an overpowered tank they all needed to buy it. That's why they removed the WZ-120 from the store, if you were wondering. The WZ-120 just randomly disappeared from the store for no apparent reason. And there is a reason why. It's because it's either such an overpowered tank that they decided to not sell it after they realized so many people bought it and just completely tanked in the statistics. They need to, just stop selling as many premiums, or at least just, stop making overpowered ones for sale. They need to, make all premiums balanced. The point of a premium is to earn credits. It's not to, do better in games. I like premiums because they're unique and they've got their own characteristics, like the T95E6. There's nothing like it in the game. The Chieftain's similar, but it's not exactly the same, and that's why I like it. It's not overpowered at all. However, when you pull out a tank like the T-22 medium, it is overpowered, and the reason of that is because it's a premium. T95E6 is not a premium. However, it is a tier 10 tank, and bad players want to buy it because it is a tier 10, and because of that, they bought it, and it was in crates, which means Wargaming made a crap ton of money. So overall, it's just, I think the game is too much focused on greed right now, and really, money is the whole reason why this game is doing so bad, matchmaking-wise, and all of these numbers. If Wargaming stops selling premiums over time, if they stop selling more and more premiums over time, less players would want to buy premiums because they would already have them. Or, it would just cause less premiums to be in the matchmaker overall, which would cause a better tone for players to learn how to grind tanks. They need to start releasing more, interesting tech trees into the game. They're adding the weird, I think it's the Czechs they're adding with the Swedish and all these things mushed together. Why can't they just make all of those tanks in separate lines? Why can't they make the Progetto its own line with only the Italian tanks, the Swedish tanks all in their own line, like on Wargaming PC or World of Tanks PC? They need to do something like that, where instead of just adding, some stupid tier 10 premium that just erased a complete line that they could have had, like the AMX 30B. That was a tier 10 tank on PC that you could earn. They erased an entire tier 10 line because they added that tank into the game. Why? What is the point? The K91 is a tier 10 medium tank on World of Tanks PC. They erased an entire line they could have created on World of Tanks Blitz, all because they wanted to make money and sell their content. Wargaming, I hope you're watching this video, and all I'm trying to say is if you make new tanks and more exciting ones that aren't premiums, more people will want to grind those and learn how to play them. Like the FE4005, that was great that they added them. However, the issue is that nobody knows how to play them. You need to release a tutorial video on the tank saying how to play it. And that will cause more players to know how to play, because if you put it in the news, most of the players will watch it. Compared to where this video I'm making, it might only get to 1,000 of you guys. It might only get to 5,000. I doubt it'll even get to 500. And what I'm trying to convey is that this whole video is completely useless to my entire opinion of the game, because this video is not going to do anything to Wargaming. It's not going to, even put a scratch on their entire population or their opinions of the game. But I'm just trying to say this video just because I think that it will help some of you guys understand the issue with the game as of right now and how we can try to improve it in the future. I hope you guys really did enjoy this video, though. I didn't want to have any negative comments on this video. And I'm not saying like negative comments in the comment section down below, but I don't want you guys to feel like I'm, saying everybody's a noob if they buy overpowered premiums. I do it too. And I do it because I'm like, wow, this tank's overpowered. But after a while, I don't run the Smasher anymore because even if it's an exciting tank to run, you know that it's overpowered. You know that it's not good for the game when you run that tank. You are literally, it's like just running a giant money bomb saying, haha, I'm overpowered. I can shoot heat that will penetrate you, do more damage, back up. I have more hit points than you. I can high explosive you. And then they nerfed the KV2, which really just ticked a bunch of people off because the KV2 isn't really that overpowered when you think of the Smasher, a tier 7 KV2, which has better aiming time. It makes the SU-152 literally useless. There's no point to it. So they need to nerf tanks. And not to mention, the Smasher's a collector vehicle. They said that they can nerf collector tanks, yet they haven't touched the Smasher. And I'm going to say shame on you, Wargaming, for not touching it. But yeah, I hope you guys did like this video. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Please let me know your opinions down in the comments down below. This video took me a while to make, hours and hours of recording and editing. So I hope that you guys do like it, and make sure to subscribe to keep up the good content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.